Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Welcome to the show. We have to talk seriously for a moment about what I see as a rot at the center, the very heart of the semiconductor industry. Now let's begin by talking about where the semiconductor industry is right now. Traditionally, semiconductor chips would be designed by American companies, Intel, Nvidia, AMD, Qualcomm, that sort of thing, manufactured in Taiwan. Remember that. It's key. Taiwan is the global center of semiconductor manufacture, and then assembled at various locations in Southeast Asia, China, India, those sorts of places. Now, recently, Joe Biden has, not just Joe Biden, before Joe Biden, I'm not trying to make a political thing here, but Joe Biden specifically has taken a very aggressive trade policy toward China over worries that China has been using American designs or American designed chips to improve its military capabilities. And indeed, that there is evidence of that. So Joe Biden has blocked a lot of the technology trade from reaching China. The issue, of course, is Taiwan. Now, if you've been paying attention to questions of Taiwan, questions of China, you've likely heard about the chip war that is ongoing between the United States and China. The reason that this is such an open question is Taiwan. China sees Taiwan as part of their country. The United States and its allies are a little more mixed, because they wanted favorable trade relations with China. So they had to go along with the idea that Taiwan was part of China. However, they did not want the Chinese military, they did not want the Chinese state to have access to the semiconductor manufacturer in Taiwan or the income that it generated. So Taiwan has become a bit of a hot button issue, geopolitically speaking. Now, recently Joe Biden has been pursuing a very aggressive trade policy towards China. The allies of the US, Japan, and the Netherlands, very recently have announced they will also be pursuing a very aggressive trade policy with China. The Netherlands in specific is important to talk about here because the Netherlands is the only place in the world that manufactures the really, really, really top end lithography equipment that is used in the manufacturing process. Not that important, but worth mentioning. Biden also announced passage of the CHIPS Act. I believe it was 2021. That sunk billions and billions and billions of government dollars into bringing manufacture from Taiwan to the United States. Now, the reason this is good is obvious. I, bringing manufacture from Taiwan from a geopolitically unstable state to one of the most politically stable places in the entire world. Doesn't feel like that all the time, but it is. Historically speaking, it's much more politically stable than Taiwan, certainly. Is a fantastic thing. Passing that act is a national security win. It is an economic win. It is a win for workers' rights. Huge fan of that bill. But it does create complications in the transition. Now, the manufacturing industry is not an easy industry. It's very high tech, very developed, very expensive. It will take companies years to get domestic production to the point where it is competing with Taiwanese production. It may take the better part of a decade until we are actually there with our domestic production. It is not a low-tech process. You need very, very high-end equipment. You need a very, very well-trained labor force. You need billions and billions and billions of dollars of investment. And you need the industry to mature through the low-end stuff to the middle grade stuff until it can finally produce the high-end stuff. Again, I think bringing that over to America was one of the best decisions the Biden White House has ever made. But I also think that within that transition, there is a very large chance that some chaos will ensue over the island of Taiwan. And if that chaos engulfs Taiwan before domestic manufacture is operational, the entire semiconductor industry flatlines. And ever since Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan over the summer, China has been very aggressive militarily towards Taiwan. They have been crossing naval borders. They have been putting military bases in islands around Taiwan. They have been flying fighter planes over the island. Earlier this week, Taiwanese anti-aircraft guns were locked and loaded onto Chinese planes. They are training their populace in emergency preparedness and bomb safety drills. This is a massively unstable region of the world, and it is the center of 70% of chip manufacture, 92% of the really high-end stuff. And China thinks that this country is part of their country. It is a very unstable situation. It is a very unstable supply line. And NVIDIA, which is one of the world's best chip manufacturers, and I think 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, they are going to be one of the biggest companies in the world. But right now, they are trading at a forward PE ratio of around 90. That means that their stock price is 90 times bigger than their earnings. This is a bubble, folks. The semiconductor industry as a whole has been stimulated on the stock market by the CHIPS Act. People saw all that money rush in to semiconductor manufacturer, and they are like, let me get a piece of that action. And it makes sense. It makes sense. In 5 years, in 10 years, this is the industry to be in. It's what software was 5 years ago. It's what Silicon Valley was back when the events of the social network were happening. Even more so. It's Texas oil before it boomed. This is the industry to be in. But in the medium term, in the next 1 to 2 years, there's a lot of political instability that is going to plague these companies. And if anything, God forbid, if anything happens in Taiwan, if some soldier on the ground launches an anti-aircraft fire, if some plane in the sky shoots at a military base in Taiwan, it is off to the races. Because there doesn't even need to be a war. There doesn't even need to be a conflict. If China destroys any of the manufacturing centers in Taiwan, the entire semiconductor industry flatlines. They do not have production. They do not have anyone to manufacture the chips that they sell. Their supply line falls apart. And I think as a result of the CHIPS Act, as a result of people underestimating the very real chance that something happens in Taiwan, people underestimating the very real downside that exists if something does happen. We are seeing these companies blow up. Nvidia off to the races. AMD off to the races. And it makes sense on the surface. But it relies on a cursory understanding of the industry as a whole. These people are in these companies too early. A lot of these people, a lot of the traders on Wall Street, a lot of the people on Wall Street who are jumping into these companies with both hands, both feet. You don't jump with your hands. You jump with your feet. Feet first, all in, are going to get ranched. They are going to take a bath. And I just hope that they aren't way over leveraged. I hope that these banks understand the game that they are playing and are taking a diversified and measured approach so it doesn't affect other industries. Thank you for sticking around for the whole thing. I appreciate your time. I tried to research this as best as I could. There's a lot more that goes into it. If you want to do some digging, do digging into what the manufacturing process is, into Chinese culture, into the gulf between China and Taiwan. Do some reading. Particularly, I would recommend there are some absolutely fantastic memos by the people over at the Rand Corporation. There's some absolutely fantastic articles on Politico, videos on Al Jazeera, English, all about this. Please do research. Please understand what it is that I'm talking about before you make a decision on it. But this is the way I see the market. Thank you for tuning in. Till next time.